Ahoy and welcome back to another video. After playing the Duskbloods this last weekend of the network test, I can finally share some of my thoughts on the game. But really what I want to talk about today is what I want to see from the Duskbloods when the full game comes out later this year for me to really get into it. I want to touch on what this game needs to do to make it feel like a more worthwhile experience than something like Elden Ring Nightreign. A game that I did really enjoy, but ultimately just kind of lived off of its aesthetic for me. And by the end of the game, I was kind of grew tired of it and ready to put it down. Rather than the more single-player focused Souls games that I'm constantly revisiting and constantly want to play more and more of. I'm hoping that the Duskbloods can land somewhere between those two things. But we'll talk about that. All the footage you'll see in this video is the same footage you'll see in the previews, the day before this test went live from outlets and creators like VGC, Gamespot, IGN, VaatiVidya. I am respecting Miyazaki's wish that he will not share footage from our test, even though I could totally capture footage, and I totally did capture footage, and you can totally find everyone else's footage that they're posting on YouTube. But I'm going to honor the request and, not post my stuff here. So we'll start off with a little bit of kind of what I thought of the gameplay itself before we get into what I want later on. So first off, game looked and felt like a From game. So 2 thumbs up there. If you just ran around this world and pretended like there was no other players running around in there, you could totally get the vibes of this is just a brand new Souls game, although it comes with the added effect that you have some crazy mobility options now. Like you can quadruple jump right from the start, which is crazy. That feels crazy. I'm really interested to see how the platforming is going to open up some areas and hide some secrets away. There's a lot of promise there. It ran at a pretty good frame rate. All things considered, I thought it ran really smoothly. And FromSoft's art design is as good as ever. Things looked sick as hell. Really enjoyed just looking around at this game. It really looked nice. It's kind of expected with the From game. They're really good at creating good vibes and good aesthetics. I love their weirdness and their intensity of their environments. And that all is here in the Duskbloods in the one map we played. That weirdness extends also to the characters and their names. I think there was 8 playable characters in this. There will be more in the full game, but there's a guy who's just named Pajama Wearing Jan or something like that. It's just a dude in long johns with an axe. There's the senator who can turn into a dinosaur. And then there's my personal favorite, Zork, who is just seemingly some sort of eldritch monster in a diving suit. There's a couple more quote-unquote serious characters you can pick as well. But I love that they're not shying away from their strange tendencies and letting you mess around a little bit. Now, while the vibes and the aesthetic and the look and the feel of the game are all there, it does have a little bit of that rush, go do stuff feeling that Nightreign had, which is really just not how I want to play one of these games. I like taking in my environments, taking it slow, looking at every path, exploring every inch. And then in this game, it feels like I'm just kind of forced to run around and grab stuff willy-nilly. Now, I'm sure that will change with time when I learn what to go for, what kinds of things I'm looking for on each map. But then that kind of naturally gets into another problem I had with Nightreign, which was the familiarity and the repetitiveness of doing the same maps over and over. Now, Nightreign had one map, and that one map could change a little bit depending on what was going on. This game might not have that exact same problem, since there is a baked-in fact that there's baked-in PvP. There's always going to be something different happening because there's human players interacting with you, not just NPCs or random monsters. But there's also going to be 3 maps at launch, which I'm sure will help mix things up. You won't be doing the same exact map with the same exact castle every single time. So I hope they really lean into that, and I hope each of these maps all play differently. Maybe have some different driving goals to work towards. It was also mentioned at the in one of the interviews with Miyazaki that the ends of these matches won't always be a 1v1v1 free-for-all like it is in the playtest. If you haven't played the playtest, basically there's 4 rounds. The first 3 rounds are about resource collecting and leveling up, and then the last surviving players, the people who are not eliminated based off the points they've accrued, will end up in a 1v1v1 free-for-all fight. And it was fun, but I can see if you're always working towards just a PvP encounter, that also is not going to be fun for a lot of players, myself included, even though I was 2 for 2 with my boy Zork in the playtest. Yeah, they said that there will be some different endings here, there'll be specific, unique, big bosses that everyone will team up to fight. But and bosses and free-for-all, those seem like the two most obvious ideas for an end game, but I would like to see them, stretch their legs a little bit and mess around with some other ideas. Maybe there's a mode where there's a big horde of enemies and the three players, work together to survive those big horde of enemies. Maybe there's another competitive one where each of the three players gets put at the end of some sort of gauntlet of traps or enemies, and each of you have to fight towards some item or reward in the center and claim it to win. I want them to mix it up and get weird with like how these matches play out and how they ultimately end, and how you win each match. I would love for like a higher focus on character specific quest lines or objectives within the maps and the gameplay, to progress their stories and to unlock things. Nightreign had a little bit of this, but I feel like it really could have done more. It just kind of teased you with like the in-game quests. I think for me to really get into Duskbloods, I'm gonna need some like objectives that I feel like are personalized to me, not just like go win the match, go kill some people, but like maybe it's like my goal is as Zork, I have to find a specific monster in a specific spot and make that my goal, and just try to like really push me in different ways to unlock things. I feel like Nightreign in general was pretty light on unlockables and meaningful progression, progression that you keep outside of the map, permanent progression. And I feel like Duskbloods, just give me a whole closet of skins for each character. I want to really feel like if I'm a main of a character, I'll keep talking about Zork because he's the one I played the playtest. If I'm a Zork main and I'm fond of him, I want to play with him all the time. I want to really be able to see that commitment to that character. I want to be able to kit out, this character with different weapons and skills that I feel like I have unlocked and I have like gained the ability to play this character the way I want to play them, and I want to be able to look a certain way, showing off all these unlocks and these things I've done with this character. I think these unlocks, can and should be in the form of multiple unlock methods. There should be distinct one-time challenges like, defeat a certain boss on a level, win a certain amount of matches, maybe win a map on all three, win a game on all three maps, find some cool relic in a secret area on this one level that, it kind of points you towards. That kind of thing I think would be good to like unlock certain weapons and skins. But I also want to have like some lifetime stats to chase. I would love to have like a skin or a weapon that I unlock when I get 100 PvP kills. Give me like a golden Zork armor when I win my 50th match. Stuff like that, where I can feel like I'm constantly making progress, win, lose, or otherwise. And when I get sent back to the hub, I can go back and like look at stuff and see where I'm working towards. I'm sure the game will have a sort of perk system to tack on like Nightreign had, and give me more of that. Let me maybe upgrade weapons in some way, or change the kind of damage my weapons do. I know the dangerous thing is here that there is game balance to consider and maintain because this is a multiplayer game. But maybe this upgrading and kitting out just changes kind of the way the game feels and give me options, really tune things to where I feel comfortable and like I'm getting the character I want to play, even if I'm not upgrading raw stats, just to make it an unfair advantage over newer players. Like I don't think it would be the end of the world if you got a little bit stronger than new players. You think you should be rewarded for having played, played the game a bunch. But obviously you can't just have someone who's like an end game player play against someone who just got it and just completely curb stomp them. So I do accept that is a reality they have to maintain, but I do feel like I should feel better and more comfortable with my character and have more options if I've played the game for 50 hours over someone who's just picking it up, even if I don't have like a statistical advantage. Another interesting caveat and rabbit hole we can jump down here is to remember that this game is on the Switch 2, which is the only current system this game has been announced on, and that is a portable system. Will there be any level of offline play or progress you can make? Is there any level of single player, completely offline content that I could play? Is there bot matches? Could I do the same, 4-round mode that I played in the network test, but with bots? I know it would definitely change the feel of the game, but it's certainly possible. FromSoft has had NPC player-like enemies fighting with you since Demon's Souls. I think it'd be really cool. I don't think there's been any indication of this, but I think it'd be really cool if if there was some like small character specific like challenges, like little maps that were completely offline, that were completely single player. Like when you start the game up, when it's showing you how to play, you are in a distinct environment playing completely offline by yourself, fighting a bunch of enemies and end up in like a sort of boss encounter. I think it wouldn't be too crazy to hope or expect that there's some amount of those, just bespoke, smaller chunk, levels for each character. And maybe that's something that you could play offline completely by yourself. I guess the real question is like, can I play this game on an airplane? If I buy the Duskbloods and put it in my Switch 2, assuming it does have like a physical version, a physical card I can actually insert, will it be worth anything if I'm not at home? Is this game only playable if I'm sitting at my desk, connected to my Ethernet or, find some Wi-Fi? Is it only playable if I am on the internet? Another thing to consider is multiplayer with friends. I didn't do that in the playtest. I just played by myself, but I believe I read that you should be able to play duos with a friend in the full game. I'm not sure what that's going to look like. I don't know if they explain that. Is it like 4 teams of 2 and you whittle down to a 2-on-2 match at the end? Maybe this co-op version focuses on more PvE rather than PvP, and you can just focus on taking down bosses with your friends. I don't know. I want to see. I think they need to be a little bit more flexible in how we play this game and how we enjoy this game. Whereas the Nightreign, I feel like, you could play singles or you could play trios, but at the end of the day, you were playing a game that really demanded you to play multiplayer. Playing singles in Nightreign wasn't super optimal in my opinion. It was a lot tougher. So it was really just like, I found myself playing trios with with because it was hard to get a match with 2 friends at all times. So I just felt like I was constantly playing with randoms, and I don't want to have that same experience with the Duskbloods, especially with a portable system that I could be playing theoretically anywhere. I would want to have some single player options. But at the end of the day, I love FromSoft. I love their games. I'm going to play the Duskbloods. I think there's some great gameplay here. I think there's some good ideas on display, and the little we have seen. But I will always be more of a single player PvE guy personally over online multiplayer PvP. If I'm to look at the Duskbloods fondly over time, like I do with the big single player From games, like Demon Souls, all the Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro, Elden Ring, all those, I'm gonna need some of that, feeling that I can work towards things on my own, and I can see that progression. I feel like I'm really making progress towards something. Nightreign was fun. It was kind of a flash in the pan for me. I don't really think about that game anymore. I'm always thinking about the next run of my next Souls game. What game am I going to play? Which one have I played most recently? Which one have I played the longest ago? How is this run going to be different? What kind of challenges am I going to put on myself? All that sort of stuff. I don't think about Nightreign at all. Like I don't think I'll ever play that game again. I got my fill. I did do everything, but I feel no push or real reason to go back to that like I do with the single player game. So I hope the Duskbloods can kind of thread that needle and find its way somewhere in between the two, and still have that fun like PvP craziness, anything can happen feel, but also I can play this and love this game by myself, don't have to find, see if friends are online, that kind of thing. I would love to see if they can thread that needle. But thanks for watching. That's all I've got for today. If you like the video, like it, and consider subscribing below if you want to see more videos from me. I talk about all sorts of games and game-related topics here, but I mainly focus on the games I'm playing, which tend to be, some mix of Nintendo games, RPGs, Souls-likes, and indie games. So yeah, if you're interested in any of that, and if you liked what I had here, I'd love to hear in the comments like what you're looking for in this game, what your concerns are. Did you notice anything interesting in the playtest that like you think is worth sharing with people that people aren't really talking about? Yeah, I'd love to hear any of that in the comments below. But thanks again for watching, and see you next time.